I'm Imran Amed, founder and CEO of the Business of Fashion. Welcome back to, I think it's the final panel of the day. And it's an exciting one because we have 5 female entrepreneurs from 3 countries across the region. So there's a lot of rich material to work with, and I'm really excited to have this conversation because I always enjoy speaking with entrepreneurs. As I was saying to someone over dinner last night, to be an entrepreneur, it takes a lot of courage. It takes an appetite for risk. It takes the ability to deal with lots of unexpected challenges. It takes meticulous operational execution. And most of all, it takes real vision to seek an opportunity in the market and make it a reality. So thank you to all 5 of you for joining me. I thought we could start just by having you introduce yourselves. We have 3 brands here, by the way, 2 sets of co-founders and a solo founder. But maybe we can start, right here on my left, Altaf and Sharifa, and you can tell us a little bit about your brand, Thuna, and why you created it. What's the genesis story of your brand? Why does it need to exist?
Thuna is a contemporary footwear brand for women. We started it 5 years ago. The reason was it came from a personal struggle that we had being, we used to be in the corporate world, and we felt like there wasn't a shoe that fits our needs, our lifestyle, our seasons, and our foot structure.
Altaf and I were friends for 10 years, over 10 years
15.
Now. Okay, thank you for that. We struggled with finding footwear that we can wear throughout the day that are breezy because it's always hot here. Our winters are very short and not so cold. So we wanted to wear boots in November. And that's always a struggle because we can't do that and it's hot here in Kuwait. So we created boots that had ventilations, it has openings. That's something you can wear earlier in the season. We wanted shoes that has small heels and comfortable to wear for work from morning to night. And there was lack in the market of that, and something that caters, as Altaf mentioned, for our seasonality and a foot structure in the region, and that's why we came up with Thuna.
Tell me more about the foot structure.
Yeah, that's the challenge.
I'm curious about that.
That's the challenge.
Yeah.
So we do have a lot of flat foots in the region. We do have wide calves. So Italian boots, they don't close here, even if you're skinny, even if you're thin. So we had to create our own last. We had to create our own molds. We had to come up with new technologies when it comes to boots, that it has an opening at the same time. It doesn't look huge or wide. The same thing with flat foot. Yes, we want to wear heels, but the thin stick heels, they're not comfortable for a flat foot that most of the region suffers from. So we had the block heels, the platforms, and these kind of were all solutions to a problem that we have in the region.
Okay, thank you. Ghada, will you tell us a little bit about your business and why you created it?
Yeah. So my brand is 1309 Studios. It's a contemporary ready-to-wear brand. I started it around 9 years ago. Am I too loud?
No, you're perfect. You're perfect.
I started it 9 years ago, and I wanted to create a brand that is modest and that are for women like me. I didn't find a brand that represented my values and how I wanted to dress, especially with an abaya. It was quite traditional, it was quite strict, and I wanted it to be more playful and to suit me and women like me. So that's the main reason that I started.
And talk to me more about the market opportunity then. That was your personal experience, right? That you were seeking something modest but more playful
and suits the women of today.
Okay.
So the market honestly was ready for a brand like 1309 when I first started creating prints and colors and bold motifs on abayas. It was received beautifully. And I felt like a lot of women were seen. Like I get these like cute messages from customers where they say, you know, like I feel really beautiful. I feel like I'm not hiding behind the garment rather than like showing myself and my beauty and being proud of who I am. And I feel like there was a stigma around the abaya especially that you kind of wear it to hide. And I tried to change that narrative into you wear it to like celebrate that beautiful piece of cultural clothing while showing who you are. And that's the message of the brand, yeah.
Okay. Okay, and Mounaz and Aya, by the way, we went from Kuwait to Qatar, and now we're going to Egypt. Your accessories brand, which I had the pleasure of getting to know a little bit when I was in Cairo last year. Can you talk to me about the kind of genesis story for your brand, and maybe a little bit about what it's like to work together as family members?
So growing up, can you hear me? No.
Not very well, not yet.
Okay. Just make it closer. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So growing up, and we were dreamers, right? So my mom's family, they're all artists. My dad is such a dreamer. So we grew up in this environment at home where you dream really big and just follow your heart and don't settle for less. I was a painter. I still am a painter. And Aya was my muse. Aya had always had a very good eye to what's about to trend, what's in trend. I'm very disconnected from the social media and what's happening around the world. So she would always tell me, by the way, this is trending, or you know what, change this color to red. Just growing up, you know, we would create our own bags, our own pieces of clothing, or even go to the jeweler and create our own accessories or pieces of jewelry. And I guess naturally when we grew up, we both were like, you know what, we have a very big vision. And I was like, why do Arabs, in Arabic we call it عقدة الخواجة, like why do Arabs always go and buy a lot of non-Arab brands? And it's because maybe we have a gap in the market. Maybe we need to really create something that is very close to home, that is that values our tradition, our aesthetic, our culture, and then just show it to the world, make Arabs proud, and at the same time introduce our culture to the global world. And I was like, yes, okay, so this is where Okhtein started. It's been 10 years, so we're celebrating a decade of Okhtein this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So yeah, we started 10 years ago. It's been a journey ever since. It feels like 20. But I guess the main reason why we started is because we wanted to really create the Arab luxury dream, whatever that is. And we really wanted to be pioneers, to set a path for all the Arabs, especially Arab women, to create an identity and to be very proud of like the abayas. Like there was such a stigma, like you're covered. No, you know what, you respect your heritage and you can be covered, but at the same time feel beautiful and be seen. So I guess it just manifested in itself in accessories and jewelry, because
we love working together, even with projects or personal painting era. And then from there, when I first graduated, I told Mounaz, listen, we work well together. We love accessories. Like she said, growing up, we'd always design our own jewelry, our handbags. And I told her, we have a great vision, and let's just start a brand that lasts forever. Like I was super inspired growing up with all the big fashion labels, and we love to read into how they started. And every brand, as you see, like all the big global brands, they started somewhere. And we said, okay, this is our time. This is our time to start, and let's create a very strong DNA. We were inspired by Old Cairo, the brass of Old Cairo, and it was a representation of both of us working together. We share the same horoscope. We're both Pisces. We're not twins. There's a year apart, but we complete each other. So I personally feel duality is very important for our brand. Our logo is like an arrow, which is like two directions, going different paths, but we're still connected and linked. And I feel like we complete each other. And this is the Okhtein world, more or less. So yes, we disagree, obviously, like any other siblings would, but I feel like it grounds us that we have different maybe visions, but at the same time we're still connected and linked.
Plus, we have a very strict mother. She's like, I don't care if you fight when you're back home, you're sisters again, okay? And
Right.
she's like, never lose a family member over work, ever. And, you know, she like really raised us that way, so.
So, you know, you operate in the accessories business, which is probably the most competitive part of our industry.
Yes.
You know, I understood from what Ghada was saying that, you know, the abaya had this opportunity for modernization. I understand, you know, what Sharifa and Altaf were saying, that, you know, the shoes that they didn't fit properly or didn't fit the lifestyle and the culture and the weather here. But handbags, like what in the handbags market was missing here? Because you can get so many different kinds of handbags.
Mounaz was just saying something inside when we were talking. Handbags, maybe in the Arab world, it's a status.
Not just there, but worldwide.
Maybe
It's a
worldwide,
status
but
quo.
it's like you want to show off your status with the handbag you're obviously carrying. So with Okhtein, this is the biggest struggle. Like, why would I buy another bag, a local brand, if I have my Hermes, Chanel, Louis Vuitton? So this is very competitive, of course, but we wanted this proud moment. We noticed in the very beginning, 10 years ago, that the leather from Egypt was exported to Italian factories that eventually produced the Loewe's and the Louis Vuitton from Egypt. So we're like, why are we going through all of this like panel and just go back to where it started and showcase to the world that this is an Arab brand. Yes, I'm wearing a leather bag made back then in Egypt and now made in Italy, but it's designed by Arabs. So
Plus, also, I think it's very important, like as a conscious shopper, if you want to buy the Hermes Kelly, right, or the Birkin, obviously it gives you a status, and we all know that. But it's Hermes. It's very true to their tradition, to their values, to everything they stand for. And it's very important when you buy something from a brand, it's not just a status quo, but it's also shared values. And that's why A and I were like, you don't have to own one bag. You can own like 5, you can own the Hermes, you can own the Louis Vuitton bucket, and then you can also own an Okhtein bag. But mainly, we realized that whenever we asked our friends, where is your to-go-to brand for evening and occasional, we would always like, it would always take a good 10 minutes for the girls to answer. They're like, so, and then we realized some girls would buy the classic Chanel and go to a wedding, a cocktail party, and then another girl would, let's say, I have a friend in Saudi, she's like, no, I would never take the classic Chanel bag to a wedding, I would take something with more crystals, so I would buy, and then it took her a while to think where she's buying a crystal bag from. And I was like, there's an insane opportunity here, that there's not one single brand, I mean like, who's been in the market for years, that has just been positioning itself within the occasion and evening category.
Got it. So it's like an occasion
Exactly.
driven bag.
And
right?
Arabs love occasions. We're like, whoa, all the time, all the time.
we love to celebrate.
So it's also very true to our tradition. Like we
Got it.
celebrate everything, and like you know what, we created something that is very celebratory. And
Got
Even
it.
when we're shifting away from evening bags, it's still embellished.
Okay.
very loud.
That's what we love.
Got it.
Aesthetic.
So now we understand the vision and the kind of founding story of each of these 3 businesses. As I said in my introduction, you can have a vision, but then you need to make it reality.
Yeah.
Then you need to figure out the operations. I wanted to come back to you, Altaf and Sharifa, on the idea of manufacturing shoes. I mean, and for those in the audience who don't understand the process of what it takes to create a shoe, you used the word last earlier, right?
Yeah.
So, but maybe just educate us on the design and development process for a shoe, first of all. Second of all, what it takes to manufacture a shoe at scale. And third of all, the merchandising of a shoe, right? Because unlike a bag where there's like one size, maybe there's 2 sizes. When you have a shoe, you have an inordinate number of sizes, and so that requires understanding, like, how you buy or create shoes in the range that matches the demand out there. It's basically, in short, running a shoe business, even a very small shoe business, is very, very complex.
It is. It is. So when we talk about shoemaking, we don't talk about design, we talk about construct. it's like building, it's like architecture. It has to be functional. And then when we sample, the first thing we ask, we don't say, does it look nice? Does it hurt? Is it tight? Like, it's the most functional piece in the fashion industry. If you're one size different, there's like 1 centimeter difference, you cannot walk in the shoes, you cannot use it. It takes more than 30 different suppliers to make one shoe, so it has to be, it's a full industry. It starts with, it doesn't start with, it is based on the last, which is the mold, and then comes the sole, and then comes the upper, and the stitching, and the pattern making, and then the accessories. And each part of that has like 5 different suppliers, and then the inner, and then the outer leather. So it's a very, very complex product, and there is a reason you don't see a lot of footwear brands. We do understand that. It's extremely, extremely difficult, yet it's very rewarding, because like we see ourselves more of a problem solvers than just designers. We do solve a problem every single day, and it's full of problems, full of challenges.
Yeah, I like that idea of being a problem solver, right? Well, the actual design process, like how did you guys, you're not trained as shoe designers, right? So like how did you learn the process?
So in terms of learning, so both me and Sharifa are like the creative directors. So we understand the customer. We know what the design aesthetic that we want and what our vision is for the brand. And also we have a technical design team that actually does the technical side because it is extremely technical. Like she said, it's like architecture. So there are so many specifications when it comes to the shoe itself, because it's not just design, it's also function. So we do have a technical arm in the team that kind of bridges the gap between our vision and the manufacturer, and kind of speaks our language and both the manufacturer's language. So that's how kind of we started out, and I think now we kind of know as soon as we see a sketch or we put something together, we know what the final look will be. Like, is this going to work or is this just nice on paper?
And how did that just come with experience?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, experience, lots of samples, and
working with trusted also manufacturers, the manufacturers we work with are very, like, we're more like family, and it's something that I really love with this industry is that you don't find a manufacturer who just graduated from school. It has to be it's a craftsmanship, and it has to be inherited from father to father to father to different generations. So you go there, you attend their weddings, you meet the family. They teach you, and they love to teach you like how this is done and how we can, your sketch is nice, come, I'll show you how it's done in reality. So I don't think we would have ever made it without these genuine craftsmen and families that we've met and we're working with right now.
That's such an important point, because I think in our industry, often all of the attention or credit goes to the, in quotation marks, designer, but it's really a collaborative process,
it is,
right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So to add to the complexity, you created primarily an e-commerce driven business, right? And you got lucky because during COVID, that, as we heard earlier in my conversation with Khalid, that market is growing really, really quickly. What was the thinking behind kind of starting with or prioritizing direct-to-consumer channels and selling shoes online? I mean, you take all of that sizing that I talked about, then you try to sell them online. Like, that's pretty challenging, no?
It is.
Yeah. I think we started the business, again, we had this vision, and we started with very minimal resources. Like, our brand was bootstrapped from day one. So for us, having a physical store was not really an option on the table, but we knew we wanted to get there eventually. So the easiest form of connecting our product to the customer was having an online website or an online platform. And I think because we started in 2019, 2020 was when the pandemic happened, and I would say it was a blessing for our business. Because people who never ordered online or never ordered specifically shoes online became more comfortable in actually doing that. And part of our marketing strategy from day one was to offer free shipping, free return, free exchange. Everything is like fully covered by us, just because we wanted the customer to feel like it's okay, you can order, and if it doesn't work out, we can get it back or exchange it, because we know how tricky it is.
And then we started the home try service.
Yeah.
It's a box. You get 6 half pairs delivered to your house. You try
6
them on.
half pairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You try them on. You see what you like, and then you order it, like a mini store going to your house for a very minimal cost. And then we started doing lots of pop-ups. And hopefully we'll be opening our own store soon, inshallah.
Okay,
Yeah.
inshallah. Ghada, can we move on to you? Because I think there's some really interesting operational elements to your business that I think are quite interesting to dive into. Yeah, first of all, you were just showing me, before we came on stage, this beautiful baya that you're wearing with the fabric, which is made in Italy, with your logo really beautifully integrated into the print itself. Like the development process for you, working with international quality fabrics, what does that look like? Like what's your process?
So my process, you mean by design process, right?
Design and development, yeah.
So in the design process, I usually start with fabric. I love fabric, and I feel like one of the main reasons I started a business, because I keep purchasing fabric and I don't know what to do with them. And so it always starts with that. And I like to start with a story. So what is the story of the girl I'm designing for today? And it's always, I'm a very spiritual person, and as I go through life, I evolve and I go through many challenges, and I like to kind of take my story and kind of incorporate it in whatever I'm doing, because I feel like the customer or whoever is watching the brand is gonna connect to that. So it starts with the story. What do I want to say this season? And the reason I chose the butterfly is the metamorphosis process, which is
Is that the print that you're talking
yeah,
about?
yeah, and it's how the caterpillar turns to a butterfly and all of that. And I wanted to use the symbol of butterfly for healing and freedom and moving on in life. So that's the reason I chose that. And in terms of working with the suppliers, honestly, working with international suppliers have taught me a lot about weaving, especially because that's like printing and weaving and creating beautiful patterned textile is one of my passions. So like Sharifa's process and Altaf, I learned a lot through it, and I met very genuine people who were very open to teaching me, especially that our industry, our fashion industry in the Middle East is pretty young, so I don't have access to these experts around me. So yeah, it was fun and educational. Yeah.
Sustainability is also quite a big focus for you in the way you source and think about your fabric selection.
Yeah.
Obviously that's a kind of overused word in our industry. It's a buzzword. I think there's a lot of
greenwashing.
Meaning and greenwashing that's just kind of taken all the meaning out of that word.
True.
What does it mean for you personally as an entrepreneur building your business, and what appetite is there for that kind of product in this market?
So when I first started, I did believe that, yeah, I want to have a sustainable brand as much as I can, and I thought that was exclusive to textile and packaging. But through time, I learned about greenwashing, and I understood what it means, and I wanted to build my brand on genuine values. So I took it further into practicing zero waste pattern making, having only made-to-order items, so there are no inventory waste, and also focusing on quality, so the product is actually durable and it helps the consumer shops less. Now, the consumer from the region is very educated and very mindful, and I found that they actually know their impact on the environment and the world, and appreciate brands that have these values and champion sustainability.
Great. Okay, Aya and Mounaz. Maybe Mounaz, I'm going to start with you because you've become kind of the face of the brand, right? The outward expression of the brand. I'm curious about how you think about marketing a brand in this.
I think you confused us because
Yeah.
now I think roles have switched. No, am I? No.
Well, maybe
she's
both
leading
of you
marketing
can
now.
answer. Both of you can answer.
We split the work. I handle more marketing. Mounaz handles product development and
Yeah.
production.
Yes, of
So,
course.
but we don't really, we don't announce who handles
Who does what?
It's
But
more
like, tell
something
me
inward.
about how you
But
communicate the brand.
I love this question because as I was watching the previous panels, this day and age is very different than when we started 10 years ago. When we started, it was all about the product. That's it. We were focusing on Okhtein's imagery, Okhtein the brand, the product. It was never about Mounaz and myself. And then with time, because we were very a bit reserved when we first started, we're not content creators, we're not influencers, let's just focus on the product and anyone that can help promote the product.
And building the business.
And building the business,
Yeah.
exactly. And with time, there was a bit of a pressure on ourselves and from people in the company. You need to be the face of the brand. The young generations, they're more connecting to brands that have the person standing for the brand or representing the brand. And it did put a lot of pressure on us, try to be more out there. Because honestly, I do agree that you resonate well with the brand now when you see the person behind the brand in a way. Especially that there's this curiosity, how did you design? Show us more real images, the BTS. It's not just about a polished image or a polished campaign. And this is something that we're integrating now, moving forward. We've recently been doing it just maybe the past 2 or 3 years. Our accounts have been more public, try to wear and take pictures of the products, try to be more active by taking images. We tend to forget. It's honestly a very hard job.
It's very hard.
Creating content is very hard.
People really underestimate
completely.
the talent that it takes
Of course.
to consistently create engaging content, right?
It takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're actually enjoying the moment and just out for dinner, oh my God, at least for us, oh my God, we forgot to take pictures. So it honestly, it consumes a lot of energy, especially that we are already drained with running the business. Because we run the business, we design, we manage a team of 75 people back in Cairo. It's a big...
Okhtein is a school, okay? Because every single employee we have is new to the industry, unless we're hiring people outside of Egypt, right? And since they're very new to the industry, regardless of what they studied in university, the actual field, on-ground experience, they come and learn from us. So we're always mentoring them. So this requires a lot of energy as well. So I always have this constant conversation. I'm one of the panels was do you build your audience first or do you build your brand first? And I think now the lines have been very blurred in fashion.
Yeah,
right?
the two are kind of so linked together.
Which is unfair, right? Because someone in the audience pointed out, what if I'm a private person and because of my values or whatever her personal reasons are, I don't want to be out and about and show my face. What then, right? Does my brand just disappear? And I've been reading a lot of books lately that there's the creative director strategy and then there's the brand strategy. And luxury lately, it's been, I think, the past 40 years or 30 years, maybe more so the past 20 years, it's more about the creative director behind the brand. The story, the aesthetic, etc. But then you don't find most of the creative directors blogging or taking pictures with the products, right? But when you're a new up-and-coming brand, and you have to be the face of the brand. And then there's blurred lines everywhere. You're like, okay, I love to cook. Do I represent myself as the face of the brand, as in my free time I love to create recipes, or does it have to be fashion related? Do I have to go dress up, have my hair, makeup, which takes a lot of effort and time, by the way, and take the perfect picture? Because it's physically impossible to take a selfie that looks good, but at the same time you have to hire a photographer. It's mayhem. It's crazy. So I keep telling I can't do it. I can't. It takes a lot of energy. And I think the brand should stand for much more than just what I wear today or how I'm styling this bag, and whether it goes with a leather jacket or a abaya, or, you know, because that's the whole point. It's an accessory, and you style it the way you want to style it. It's just, you have to just be proud that there's something coming up from the Middle East. And, you know, growing up, when I used to travel to the US, I would always find like, I came across this very sweet American girl who had an Arabic tattoo, and I asked her, oh, do you know what it means? She's like, no, but I like the way it looked. So I started laughing. I'm like, why do you have an Arabic tattoo? She's like, because it looks exotic. I'm like, interesting. And then it just hit me. I was back in school. I'm like, people find the Arab world is very exotic. The women here, their eyes, their culture, their food, and we should like really be proud of that, and we should really show it. So if my bag is too gold, because I had a buyer once say it's too gold, I'm like, yeah, but it's the identity of the brand, so I can't really change that. I understand it's not for you, but you have to love it, but you can respect that at least I'm doing something, you know.
Well, it leads me to my next question, and maybe I'll open this up to all of you, because I think, you know, when I travel to frontier markets like this, you know, when I was in Cairo last year, I was in the Philippines earlier this year, one of the questions I always get is, well, how do I take my brand that I've built in the Philippines or in Egypt or in Kuwait, and how do I break into the West? Someone asked me that after dinner yesterday. And my question is always like, why do you need to break into the West? You know, why do we always need to be looking for validation from the West when each of you has identified an opportunity in a market that has maybe too much gold, or is modest wear, or is, you know, shoes that can adapt to the lifestyle and physique of a woman from this part of the world? Like, why do we need to think about expanding into the global markets when there are important markets in this region that are interesting to go after? And so I'm just curious, like, how have you thought about those questions? You know, how have you grappled with, do I want to take my business elsewhere? You know, Khalid earlier today on this stage, he said, we're not focusing on the global market. We're focusing on the Middle East because we see an opportunity here. He said, we have blinkers on. How do you guys feel about that? Maybe I'll ask you first.
Yeah. So for us, regardless of where we are or where we are selling our products, it's very important to stay true to who we are and where we come from. So even if we do expand into European market or the Asian market, we will still remain an Arab brand at the core of what we offer, how we design, and what we are all about and what our values are. And I think it is, yes, we do believe that there is a great market here, but it's also, I think down the line, there is also an opportunity to expand our voice and have the fashion industry, the global fashion industry, be represented from like people from all over the globe, and not just being dominated by maybe the West or maybe a specific lens. Why don't we have a wider lens? So for us, it is, yes, we do believe in the market, in the Middle East market. At the same time, we do think that it's important to talk about what the Middle East is all about and what the type of talent that we have, and to kind of show the rest of the world kind of like a glimpse of our world.
Ghada, you know, the modest fashion market,
Yeah.
it's a huge market globally.
Yes.
How have you thought about expansion and, you know, beyond the Middle East into other markets where modest wear is a big part of the culture?
So I have an interesting story. I used to have another brand that was doing really well before 1309. And I was advised to adjust it to a Western taste to go into the global market. And what happened is I immediately lost the essence of the brand. The customer felt disconnected, and I had to close it down, and that was really devastating for me. So I promised myself with 1309 that I'm gonna stay true to the roots of the brand and the culture and the women and the culture around me. So that was my focus for the past 9 years, especially that 1309 is a modest brand. But I feel like now women around the world want to dress modestly, especially with this quiet luxury trend and things like that. So unfortunately, going to fashion weeks and customers or buyers seeing your brand in fashion week is how you get respect and how they kind of see that you've made it.
Yeah.
So I can't stay in the Middle East and say I'm gonna stay true to my brand and I'm not gonna pursue the global market, because fashion week is the key to a global market, and I want to have a voice in the global fashion narrative. I want to take place. I want to tell stories to the world about women like me and how we dress. So it is important for us to take part of that while staying true to us and not being, and staying loyal to the client here.
Okay, let's move on to the
Nailed it.
customers, because there's a lot of, I think, misconceptions about the luxury customer in the Middle East, and probably the first and foremost of those is that the customer is the same. The Kuwaiti customer is the same as the Qatari customer, is the same as Will you, since you all come from these different markets, will you talk to us about the things that you think are misunderstood about customers in Egypt or Qatar or in Kuwait, and what you do as a business to kind of meet that customer's needs? Mounaz, maybe we can start with you about Egypt.
There is definitely a misconception that Arabs in general have the same shopping habits, same taste. You come from the Arab world, then you like this. This is definitely a very big misconception. I feel like every country has a very different shopping habit, taste, what they like, what they don't like. What we do in general, we definitely sit down with locals from each country that we want to penetrate. We try to understand their shopping habits. We try to understand where would you buy, where would you wear this bag, for example. This is very important to us. We just can't label or misjudge any new country. For example, now because we're opening a store in Dubai, okay, who do you want to target? When you sit down with any agency, do you want to target the expat community? Do you want to target the locals? Because within each country, it's very segmented. You just can't judge it as a whole. And I feel like this is one of the biggest misconceptions. And speaking of misconceptions, there's also many like, oh, you're a local brand. We don't trust local brands because we feel like their quality is not good. This is also one of the very big misconceptions. Do you produce here? Where do you produce? So this trust issue is also a very big one.
I think we live in a very interesting time, the internet, how we're all connected. So it doesn't have to be East versus West, right? Because typically I don't think this is how commonly a woman from the Arab world dresses, right? So we're all under the influence, and there's no shame in that. If anything, that's the point of being connected. And like Ghada said, you need a stamp of approval from sadly like this part of the world to show who you're about. And I think all, us three brands, we all have a message. It's not just we're creating a product for the sake of selling or knowing who our consumer is. I think all our products are not a need, it's a want, right? So why do you want our brand?
So, but tell me, neither of you have answered my question. So
Yeah.
when it comes, so the Egyptian customer, what do we need to know about the Egyptian customer?
We're being sneaky, and I. Okay, so I can say that when Okhtein first started, the first comment that we had on Instagram, okay, the first comment was like, oh my God, the ugliest handbag I've ever seen in my life. That was the first comment.
Ugliest handbag I've ever seen.
And then the second comment, are you guys Egyptian or from Lebanon? People actually thought we were Lebanese, okay?
For a long time,
They
no one
didn't
thought we were Egyptian.
Yeah, for like the longest time ever, they didn't even think we were Egyptian. I'm like, why? But I think it's because they did not trust that something could stem from Egypt. And
because people perceive Egypt as?
I feel
I
like
don't think
fashion,
we're luxury.
when we first started, it was
shoppers.
like maybe 1 or 2 brands that went international, or one brand.
As a
And
family.
yeah,
Yeah.
as a Fahmi went international, and then emerging brands, many emerging brands, but I feel like a lot took the emerging brands, like fashion, as like a hobby. Like we used to get a lot of questions, what do you do? Okhtein, yeah, but what else do you do? Like what's your main job? Like, this is my main job.
I don't think we did not have the infrastructure as a country,
But
to sustain this luxury. We don't even have like, so in Saudi, in Qatar, in Dubai, you have malls that have like high-end luxury brands. We don't have that in Cairo, sadly enough. We don't.
But
So-
now it's like a very different shift when we first
Yeah.
started. Now there's like a very strong support talent, support locals. and
Exactly.
You would find like 100 emerging brands now. I feel like the ecosystem, the fashion ecosystem is growing big time in Egypt. We started having now more awareness. The talents in Egypt are incredible, whether they're in cinema, whether in actors, singers. So I do feel like the fashion ecosystem in Egypt is growing rapidly. And
But I don't think we're considered luxury shoppers. I don't know.
no, there is definitely
Are we?
luxury shopping,
Yeah.
but we don't shop. They don't mainly shop in Egypt, obviously, because we don't have the
The
malls.
infrastructure.
We
don't have the
not even the
infrastructure.
retail.
You wouldn't walk and find. We don't have like the big brands
Right.
in Egypt, unfortunately. So,
So
yeah.
Qatar couldn't be more different because Qatar is retail galore. Like the Qatari luxury customer.
So there is a misconception about the Qatari luxury customer, because I feel like everyone thinks that the luxury customer solely focuses on high-end brands to show off wealth. But I feel like Qatari customers really appreciate craftsmanship, quality, and the story behind these brands, like Allura Piana or whatever. Like they appreciate. They would tell you, oh, like I got this bag and this is how it was made, etc., etc. So I feel like there is respect for thoughtful design, not status.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's just a general misconception is
Yeah.
that people in this part of the world, they just want a big logo
Yeah.
in gold,
Yeah.
as big as possible.
Yeah.
But we're way beyond that now, right?
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, what about Kuwait?
Kuwait. So we started 5 years ago, and unfortunately we didn't face the same struggle as Okhtein. We were in the era of support local. So we did had the blessing of our local community and their support, and we did not expect it at all. This was, or if it's like, you know, like between us, who's gonna buy a local brand? Who's gonna buy a local footwear brand? That was impossible. And fortunately, we did get that support due to the general trend worldwide of supporting local. Being in Kuwait, I think Kuwaitis are very fashion forward. They're very adventurous. They do try new brands. They're not afraid of new trend. They're not afraid of trying. So that was also a blessing. They wanted to try this. Okay, let me see if I like it or not. So I think that also gave us an advantage at the beginning, and then the word of mouth happened, and this is how we expanded to the GCC as well. So like for us, it's a blessing to start as a local brand in this market. It really gave us that confidence to expand to other countries.
Anything you would add about the customer here and what makes that customer unique?
I think one thing about the customer, because they're so progressive and they're so fashion forward, they always want to be different. So for them, when we started out, we were the different thing that's not being consumed in the mass, where they don't see everyone wearing it at work or at school or when they go out. Now it's a bit different. So we do hear from customers whenever they want to buy from us, they're like, No, everyone at work is wearing it. I don't want it.
Right.
So it's like, okay.
It's a good problem to have.
So,
Yeah, it's a good problem
so
to
how do you contend with that?
So it's positive, even if the customer, that specific customer doesn't see it that way. But I think what we try to do is, I think it keeps us on edge to constantly offer newness. So we know we need to keep creating new designs. And we do know, like now, for our customers, we can segment them. There are the classic ones that want something very safe, and then there are others that want something that's super edgy, that makes a statement, that maybe only a few people will wear. So, but they definitely keep us on our toes, and like literally, to keep creating something new, something different at the same time.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. We're almost out of time. We're going to take some questions from the audience shortly, but I thought we could conclude with some advice. Each of you is a female entrepreneur working in what is still a really male-dominated sector. There's lots of women out there listening today who are thinking of starting their own brands, or they've already started their own brands, or they're facing a big challenge. Like maybe, Aya, we'll start with you. Like, one piece of advice do you have to offer for someone on their entrepreneurial journey looking to make a mark?
My mom told me something when I first started 10 years ago, because I'm talking about like woman, man. She's like, hey, listen, one woman is worth 100 men. And ever since then, because I always...
What did she mean by that?
It's an Egyptian saying, "Sitt mit rogel," which is like one woman is worth 100 men. Don't feel like
Providing our mentality in Egypt, yeah.
Don't feel like you're powerless next to men. Because I used to tell her and complain, Mom, I'm going to a room, 100 men to buy leather, and I feel like I'm not gonna get the best deal. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
She's like, no. Never have this mentality.
Okay.
Go in with a strong will, and you're more capable of them.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, one woman is worth more than 100 men. Mounaz, what about you?
I took the same advice, but then I think later in life I switched it. Like I think it's not man versus woman anymore. I think it's the development. Like as a woman or as a man, if you constantly work on yourself, your confidence, the healthiest version of yourself, no one or any gender can stand in your way, right? Because also it is very sensitive in their world when you're a strong, powerful woman, that a woman always tries to stay in the dark, whether it's not to intimidate her husband or her boyfriend or her spouse, because if you're a strong woman and your husband is not doing the same thing, don't you dare show him how successful you are. This is a big problem. I'm telling you, it's still a very big problem. However, find yourself a strong man. That's my advice.
Okay, I love it. So, 100 women, 100
Find
men
yourself a strong man.
are not as strong as one woman.
Yeah.
Find yourself a strong man who's comable
with
your
success.
own strength.
Exactly,
right?
because it's self-development and
Okay,
it's not
this
gender
is
related.
Oprah now, guys. Okay. Ghada, what about you? You have a lot to live up
I
to.
apologize to all the men out there.
So I'm gonna keep my advice pretty practical. I would say hire the right team. It could take you really far, and don't be afraid to expand. Growth requires you to step out of your comfort zone, and that's something I had to learn the hard way. And
What do you mean you had to learn it the hard way?
stay small and comfortable with a small team, and it was really scary to create more positions and hire more people, because that would require more energy from me, and it would require me to work on my leadership skills as well. So honestly, it's running a company. I agree with Mounaz, like the amount of personal development that you will go through is insane.
Okay.
For me, I would say reach out, because like for us, we've never met, like we never knew Ghada before, but we harassed her last year, like, Ghada, we need to talk to you, we need to talk to you, like out of nowhere. Just to get that insight from someone who you think is successful, someone in the region, so either they're local or not, you would be surprised how people are accommodating and how helpful they would be. We literally picked up the phone and called brands, regional brands, asking for an advice at each and every point of our business and career. And we're still doing that. So just reach out and ask.
Ask for help.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought the question was about gender.
Sorry?
How
It
come we
doesn't
asked
have to be about gender. I said in a male-dominated industry. But you know, all of
I
the
think I said back. Okay.
all of the advice applies. Wow,
I
this
read
is
all
a
about gender.
challenging crowd
You
here.
said gender.
Altaf, what about you?
I think one piece of advice, especially if you're like a perfectionist and you think your product needs to be perfect, and I learned this from Sharifa, is like it will never be perfect. Just put something out there. It will never be done. It will never be just if it's good enough to go. Just do it and then keep improving and keep perfecting it because
it's a process.
It's a process, exactly. It's a process, and there's always room for improvement. But I think, again, as Ghada said, like it takes a lot of courage and stepping out of your comfort zone to put something out there that you might think. I think it's the fear of like what people will say more than it is about the product and if it's like up to standard or not. So just put something out there, and that will keep the momentum going, and you can just keep improving along the way.
Okay. I'll add one final bit of advice before I open it up to questions, which is I think you can see from the conversation amongst these women here that a big part of finding success is just supporting each other, you know? Especially, you know, it's so challenging. I think for me, like, creating an industry where, you know, like you said, you can reach out to anybody, you know, like finding an industry where, or creating an industry where, you know, conversations like these can happen because you can learn so much just by sharing. I think the fashion industry is an industry that kind of thrives on this image of perfection and, you know, everything has to look great. But, you know, anyone who works in this industry knows, like, it's not like that. And the only way that you can actually make it through is if you are vulnerable enough to admit when you don't know what to do, and you can go up to someone and talk to them and say, like, I can't figure this out, but, you know, I saw that you managed to do it, like, can you share with me how you did it? And I think asking those questions and being vulnerable about your own challenges is really, really important, because entrepreneurship is really it's like a journey, but it's also a mindset. You know, it's a mindset which is like, you know, most people who start their own companies, like, if you asked me 17 years ago when I first started writing BOF, and then a few years later when I raised money to try to turn it into a company, if I knew everything that I would have to face up until now before I got here, I don't know if I would have done it. You know, it's so hard. And, you know, on the outside, everything can look so easy, but it's really, really hard. So having a support network of people that can kind of support you and guide you and challenge you as you're trying to navigate all this stuff, it's essential. It's essential. You guys were amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all of your stories. I always get so inspired when I hear about journeys like yours. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I think we have time for some questions. Whenever I do an open Q&A, I always ask that you keep one, that you introduce yourself, two, that you don't give a speech, that you just ask a question, because that leaves time for everyone else on stage to give their responses. So does anyone have a short question to ask? Yeah, there's one over there.
Really, thanks for this discussion. It's really energetic. I am Egyptian, and I know this word, one woman worth 100, and I second this, and I would like really to thank them, okay, for saying this and proving this. My question for them is, are they expanding outside Egypt or not yet? Second, it is a part of economical question, the effect of deflation of the currency. Is it affecting your business in terms of importing your material or exporting? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Yes, I'm going to answer the first one. You can answer the second part of the question. We are expanding. We are opening our first store in Dubai in 2 weeks. And we're opening another store in Saudi by the end of the year. So yes, we're expanding there.
The second part. It's a very political question that I cannot get into right now, but it's a difficult time for Egypt, I must say, especially that since we had the investors come on board, and we are trying to work our way towards the luxury, our way towards that. I need to have really good quality. And lots of know-how, craftsmanship, and that's why we shifted almost 80% of our production to Italy. And now it's very hard physically to import the bags to Egypt. And I guess it's going to be a difficult time for the next 2-3 years, where Egyptians cannot really actually find most of the products in Egypt. But I guess I cannot stop the brand because of what's happening there economically, and that's why we decided to grow, expand regionally for now until things balance out, because I wish I could change the situation back home, but I guess it's a very turbulent time worldwide, especially
it's turbulent for luxury market in general, I guess.
And in Egypt, they say, "Gish Allah kiتصرف," so we always find a way, my sister and I, we always find a way to take these challenges and with an open heart.
Any other questions? Yeah, there's one right here in the front. Okay, so we're going to do the one in the back, and then there's one right here in the front. Okay, thank you.
Hi guys, thanks for the talk. I just have a question for Altaf and Sharifa. Are you planning to do men's shoes wear? I think because there's a great opportunity for that.
We get this question every single day from men.
That's a good sign.
Yeah.
So how do you reply?
So we're focusing on solving women's problem, one problem at a time.
That was very diplomatic.
It's not a big no, it's not a big yes right now. We're just focused, I would say that, because again, back to manufacturing, it's a different manufacturer, everything it's like starting a new business from the beginning. So
I have Khaled's voice in my head saying fanatical focus. It's important. Okay, we had a question right here in the front. Thank you.
Yes. Hi. My question is for the two pairs. How do you make sure that the business side doesn't affect the relationship side? Or how would you handle like a conflict where you just can't seem to agree on?
Good question. Mounaz, you first.
Whoever wants to start. We have our brother, thankfully. Our brother is the CEO of the company, and he's the very balanced person between us. So if there's a case where we completely disagree, we get our brother involved.
And he always sides with you.
And he's very...
But he always sides with you.
Because...
So Mounaz always sides with her.
Mounaz is the artist, and she really, when she believes in something, there's a very emotional story behind it. And my brother and I connect more on I'm trying to be diplomatic.
They're very practical.
But we're very practical, so we find a way. But
we need both in the world, right?
Yeah,
we
of
need
course,
the practical
exactly.
left-brain people,
Exactly.
and we need the creative right-brain people.
But I would come back to the point I made earlier. It's always constant self-work, self-development. If you're an angry person or you have a trauma or whatever, every day you have to work on yourself so you can manage your relationship with your sister, with a stranger, with an employee. This is the future, self-work, self-healing.
Altaf and Sharifa, you're longtime friends.
Yes.
Going into business with a friend comes with a risk. Did you have a conversation with each other about boundaries or conflict resolution or anything before you started?
Yeah. So, when we first started, Sharifa had a concern that it could jeopardize our friendship in case the business did not work out or anything, if there's any conflict. I didn't have that, fear. And we do this thing once a year where we have like a work retreat where we disconnect for a few days, and we
Just the two of you.
Just the
just
two
the
of
two
us.
of us, where we kind of like a work honeymoon, where we kind of just sit and realign and make sure like we're still on the same page, we're still in it, we're
So
still
it's like recommitting to each other.
Yes.
exactly.
And do you raise examples of issues or things that you're struggling with, or you get basically clear the air about everything?
Clear the air about
Yeah.
everything. We just sit in a secluded place, and we just talk about everything. Like, what are my struggles right now? What are my concerns, the fears? And it's like sacred. Like, we always.
You know
Yeah,
what? I think
yeah.
that's not just good advice for
Yeah.
business partners. I think it's just good advice for life partners.
Yeah.
too. That's really, that's really healthy.
Yeah.
I might take that one.
Yeah, you should.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? I think there was one further in the back. Yeah, there's a question in the middle on the third row from the back.
Hi, good afternoon. This question's for Aya and Mounaz, because I think I heard you guys talk about something related to creative director strategy, that you've been reading about it. And I'm an interior architect, and I love the creative direction space. So I would really like to know more about what you guys have been reading, or some of the books that have been really helpful to you, or any other sources.
So there's a very interesting book I read. It's by Professor Luxury. It's called On Luxury by Kefner. I'm sure you guys know it.
On luxury.
On Luxury, yeah, by Kefner. I can show you the book after the panel.
Okay, that'd be
It's
really
a very interesting book because it explains what luxury was back then versus what luxury is right now, accessibility versus rarity, and it gets into the newly creative director strategy. I've read it like 5 times and I loved it. It was super insightful. So I'll share. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions before we wrap up? Okay.
I'm freezing.
It is cold here, but please join me in thanking Aya, Mounaz, Ghada, Sharifa, and Altaf for
Thank you
their
so much.